Hello and welcome to the Nerd World Reviewed, the podcast where we review different facets of the technological world and other parts of nerd culture. And today we're talking about Digicams. If you like this episode, remember to follow us on your listening platform of choice. You can also support us on Spotify for podcasters at the link below. In 2009, when I was 14 years old, I received a Hanukkah gift that ended up affecting my future passions: a Canon PowerShot A2000 IS. It was a two-toned gray 10 megapixel point-and-shoot camera that ran on two AA batteries and had a 6x optical zoom. I never had an interest in photography growing up, so I'm unsure of why I got this as a gift. But as I was open to new experiences and hobbies, since no one knows who they are in middle school, I took it with me everywhere. It was a bit chunky for a point and shoot at that time, but it fit in my cargo shorts pocket with ease. I took photos of nature at the wildlife preserve nearby. I shot photos of sticks in my backyard, miscellaneous figurines in my bedroom, and anything to keep myself occupied. For most of my middle school and high school years, I was an introvert without any friends, but I genuinely enjoyed my time alone. With this newfound creative outlet, I began creating clone photos of myself with a tripod and some free photo editing software called GIMP. I was influenced by the YouTuber Becky Zero, now known as Rebecca Jane Brown. On the off chance I did go outside, I'd take photos of the scenery while on vacation or the streets of Boston while going to WWE Night of Champions 2012 at the TD Garden. I didn't take photos of myself and my friends because, well, as noted earlier, I had no friends. I also didn't own a smartphone at this point in my life. Many of my classmates did, as we lived in a fairly wealthy town, but I didn't. Only a Sony Ericsson Walkman phone that couldn't send or receive photos. I never edited the pictures I took on my Canon point-and-shoot other than adding an Instagram filter, and never thought of my cameras as anything but a toy to make entertaining social media posts, never thinking of my photography as an art. Interestingly, I stopped using my camera as much when I got a girlfriend. I had better things to do than to take photos, such as spend time with my girlfriend. Since then, I've owned a Canon Rebel T7i, a Canon M50, and a Sony A7C, all interchangeable lens cameras. These have given me so much more creative freedom in both my photography and videography journeys. My portfolio continued to grow and expand to taking portraits, photos of wildlife with my telephoto lens, and some architecture. However, this has brought me to the realization recently that the one thing I don't take photos of are me and my friends. And yes, now that I'm in my 20s, I do have friends. But just like when I was 17, I want to be present and not worry about my camera settings, how I change lenses, or feeling like a nuisance just by carrying my camera around everywhere. Just like most people, I do take photos of my phone, but despite organizing them into albums, I never look at them. My iPhone's camera roll is like my bedside drawer. There are a few important things in there, but the majority is random shit that I refuse to get rid of. Mentally, I have all of these memories with friends, but only a few mediocre pictures buried in my camera roll to help me remember them. And the sad part of it is that my memory will eventually fade away, as if those experiences with friends and family never actually happened. There are two reasons why people are rediscovering Digicams. The first reason is the aesthetic. Film photography has become increasingly popular since 2019, with each photo having its own look and feel without even needing to learn how to edit. This is despite the confusing experience of using old film cameras and the ever-increasing price of popular film stocks such as Kodak Gold 200 and Portra 400. Helping to make film photography even more approachable was the release of Fujifilm's newest addition to their digital point-and-shoot line, the X100V, or X105. It's a well-built, beautiful camera with a retro aesthetic. The camera is unique, easy to use with brilliant autofocus and auto exposure. However, the best part of the Fujifilm X100V is its film simulation modes. Many photographers will look at these and simply see them as various picture profiles, but these ones are special. These picture profiles, being applied only to in-camera JPEGs, are based off of real Fujifilm film stocks. So, for those interested in film photography who don't want to learn how to edit each individual photo to look like film, they can use these. People then discovered how enjoyable it was to take the Fujifilm X100V and other point-and-shoot cameras with them everywhere. They get to shoot photos of friends with beautiful built-in nostalgic filters, and the best part is these photos aren't stored in their phone's camera roll to become lost in the void. This brings us to the second reason point-and-shoot digital cameras are making a comeback, which is to capture memories. Despite the popular belief of baby boomers, Gen Z doesn't want to be glued to their phones 24/7. They're trying to find a way to have a healthier relationship with technology. Because they grew up with social media, they're more quickly able to find ways to treat it better than we've treated it. And by we, I mean mid-90s millennials and older. One way they're doing this is by carrying Digicams with them to take photos of friends and family instead of taking photos using their phone. Why? Because most people don't just use their phones to snap a photo and then put it back in their pocket. They either retake the photo, immediately post it to multiple social medias, send it to their friends, or maybe they get distracted by a miscellaneous notification. And by that point, they are on their phones instead of being present with their friends. Carrying a compact Digicam allows them to take photos of friends just as quickly, while limiting distractions from their phones. This comes with the added benefit of having more nostalgic looking photos than the oversaturated, incredibly sharp photos modern smartphones give us that we now take for granted. Although I had low expectations that this would be the case for myself, I decided to buy one since the barrier to entry is fairly low, for the most part. When you want to buy a Digicam, you have two options. One is to get a modern point-and-shoot, such as a Fujifilm X100 series camera, a Sony RX100, or a Ricoh GR. Any of these options should produce fantastic images, but they are incredibly pricey and out of reach for many people. Or two, you can buy or even ask a family member for an older Digicam, of which there are many to choose from. I began my search for a Sony CyberShot since I'm currently shooting on a Sony a7C. From there, I found the usual rectangular point-and-shoots with retractable lenses, but my eyes were quickly drawn to the incredibly sleek T-Series CyberShots. Not only did they come in vibrant colors such as red, pink, and blue, but they didn't even have retractable lenses. Instead, they had a lens cover that slides up and down, which also works to turn on and off the camera. I was in love at first sight. I became even more interested when I found out that the TX9 models and later could shoot 3D stills and panoramas since they came out in the middle of the 3D TV craze in 2011. Although I'd rarely use these settings, it's an incredibly interesting piece of history that I would love to have in my little camera collection. Unfortunately, these models, along with many working Digicams, fetch a price of well over $100, which did not work for my $60 budget. But as I am an obsessive researcher, I found out that almost every popular camera brand in the 2010s manufactured an ultra-compact camera like the Sony CyberShot T-Series. This eventually led me to discovering the Panasonic Lumix FP1, a gorgeous 12-megapixel Digicam from 2010 with a slidable lens cover. I found mine for $52 on Mercari. Although many Digicams under $50 were in poor quality, sold mainly for parts, this one in particular was in like-new condition, with the original box, battery, charger, manual, and CD-ROM. It was being sold by the seller named Kirsten's Closet, who mainly sold used clothing. It was obvious that this was being sold by someone who no longer needed their old digital camera that was just collecting dust in a nightstand, rather than a scalper looking to cash in on a new trend. I quickly bought it, and within 2 weeks, it arrived in perfect condition. Seeing the original box and manuals in their unopened plastic sleeve was incredibly cool. The first week of owning the Lumix FP1 consisted of me carrying it in my left pants pocket while walking to school and to work, as well as taking it with me on drives. I found that I was taking a lot more photos of things that caught my eye than if I was only carrying around my Sony a7C. The first time I really saw its potential was on July 4th when I went out to see fireworks with a friend. I left my Sony a7C at home and brought with me the bare minimum, like my wallet, water bottle, and of course the Lumix FP1. I shot some very grainy but honestly very nostalgic looking videos on the drive over, along with photos of my surroundings, which was of rural New Hampshire. I took photos of the nearby harbor and of my friend when we were at a local barbecue restaurant. She took some photos of me, and then we drove off to Salem, Massachusetts. Although I've been to Salem more times to count in my life, I was taking photos like I was an out-of-state tourist. The best part was I was able to take photos quickly without needing to change settings. I could even zoom in on signs while maintaining quality using the 6x optical zoom. The Panasonic Lumix FP1 has the equivalent of a 35mm to 140mm lens in a camera that fits just in the screen of my iPhone 14 Plus. I also found the various scene modes incredibly fun to use. My favorite was the self-portrait mode that easily finds focus on you and a friend's face while you're holding the camera out in front of you. It also has a scene mode called film grain, which turns your image black and white, overexposes the highlights, and adds an absurd amount of grain. Despite it looking unlike any film stock I've ever used, I kinda loved it. The Lumix FP1 also has an intelligent auto button that brings you from intelligent auto mode back to your previous used scene mode in less than a second. I was in love with this button. While taking all these photos, I kept my phone in my backpack. I don't get to see my friends all that often on account of us working an astronomical amount of 5 days per week or more, so I wanted to remain as present as possible. The Lumix FP1 allowed me to take photos of my surroundings and my friend, capturing memories while living in the moment. My phone stayed on silent in my bag for the majority of the night. Some people see Digicams as nothing more than a trend to artificially nostalgize everyday life, and that they'll fall out of popularity within a few years. However, I disagree. These once useless junk drawer point-and-shoot cameras are finding life once again. What were previously deemed useless due to the extraordinary capabilities of modern smartphones are now being utilized to find a place in society. This trend of utilizing retro tech can also be seen with other once obsolete products, including old iPods. On one hand, iPods have no use in our lives since smartphones can stream any song imaginable for free in a lot of cases, or can even fit thousands of songs natively on their internal storage. But since Gen Z wants to avoid distractions from their phones as much as possible, iPods are simply one more tool that can help with that. It wouldn't surprise me if old flip phones started making a comeback to continue in this trend. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Nerd World Reviewed. To see photos taken with the Lumix FP1 and all other information regarding Digicams, you can read my article on Medium for free at the link below. Thank you, and have a nice day.